Are you ready for some Procreate fun? Well, let's jump in!
Hi and welcome to this tutorial. My name is Brenda Bakker and I'm from the Netherlands. I'm an artist and Skillshare teacher and I'm addicted to Procreate. For this tutorial we're going to draw a cactus in a kind of a 70-ish look and feel, and we're going to do that by using watercolors using Procreate. I will be working with my watercolor canvas and my watercolor brushes. It's a small brush set and they will be provided for free in my Skillshare classes. But if you don't have Skillshare, you are free to use any canvas of your own and any brush sets, but then you can get a slightly different outcome. But maybe that will be something that's maybe even more fun. So be creative and use whatever you like, and let's get started. So this is what we're going to create today. It's a very loose kind of watercolor style. I made digital on canvas. You see, it's very paper-like texture. That's all in the canvas. So I will strongly advise you to use watercolor canvas. You can use my canvas and my brushes. You can also use your own canvas and your own brushes if you have any. But then be prepared that the outcome could be looking slightly different. Well, that's fine, of course, but then you'll see, because when I take away these layers, you will see it's a very flat painting. So this is the painting without any textures, just the textures from the brushes themselves. It's very loose, and if you like it, it's fine with me, and other watercolor canvases will provide another outcome. But this is what I like about my canvas, so you're welcome to use it for this class and also for any further drawings you will make in the near future. So are you as excited as I am? Let's get started, because I think you can't wait to start. Let's hop in. So in order to get started, we always duplicate our canvas first. So we always have a spare one. So let's get into the canvas. I will explain it shortly. You see here a couple of layers. You have to keep that on top and draw below. The texture is going to provide it a watercolor look, and it's essential for the coloring and the color burn and to darken the colors. So you have to leave that on top. You can play with the opacity in the layers if you don't like it, or choose your own watercolor canvas or your own brushes. I have provided a very small set. It's all you need. After all, when you do the watercolor, you only have a pencil and maybe a brush and some water and ink and splashes. And that's what we have here, and that's what we're going to use. So we go to the 6B pencil, take the first layer. We're going to make a great circle and let it snap to incomplete circle. Create your finger tap, and now it's a perfect circle. It's okay. You can edit the shape. We don't need that. It's just a sketch one. But I want to move it to approximately like so, in the middle, sort of in the middle. And on that one, I'm going to create an ellipse. Also hold the pencil there, let it snap. And you can edit the shape. It's the depth of how much you will look into the pot of the plant. Maybe I want it a bit higher. I think that's cute. It's going to lift inside, tilt inside. I think that one is nice. Okay. Create same one at the bottom. Also an ellipse. Edit the shape. Resize it a bit like so. Just see, I hope I'm not in the way too much of the camera. Just see if this is sort of the same as this one. So it's correct. And now I'm going to erase all of the above. Go to the dry ink as a brush, that's okay. Oh, I've smudged it. Dry ink as an eraser, yay. And just go over it again, because the dry ink has a different texture, so an open texture. So if you lift your pencil, it will move. This is just a sketch, so don't worry if it's not just fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing has to be perfect. That's the fun in watercolor, and that's my style. I don't like perfect too much, or maybe don't tell anyone I can't draw perfect, but this is my plant pot. I'm aiming for that 70s look, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And now I'm going, just because this is a sketch one, no, I'm going to dive into my pencil again. Yes, and create an inner layer for this one. So also an ovalish shape. And I think that's quite okay for me. Maybe move it a little bit. Like so. Yes, now this is my sketch. I'm going to lower the opacity. And I'm doing multiply the blend mode, and it stays on top. So I create a new layer and I'm going to draw underneath that. And then I'm going to dive straight into the color. I've created a watercolor scribble brush. It's made out of the Hertz brush, but I tweaked it. And I named it differently, watercolor scribble, is because when I say it's a Hertz brush, you don't know what Hertz does. And when it's watercolor scribble, you know, you can scribble and dribble. You can see me do that later. So that's why I call it that way. So I'm going to color underneath my sketch because the sketch is going to get rid of at the end. So I'm going for my greens. You see the colors are very light, but my paper darkens it, so that's okay. Let's check the green one first. Yes. And I move it slightly like this way, so you see how darker the color looks there now. Don't lift your pencil, just color it in without lifting your pencil, because this color of this brush is a multiplied one. It will darken when you lift your pencil and you put it down again, so just like with real watercolor. And that's what gives me the authentic feel of watercoloring on the iPad. And that's what I like most. So every time I lift my pencil, it darkens a bit. I'm going to my smudge tool, same brush, both at 3%. So I'm going to blend this a bit. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to tap and dab, scribble and dribble. I'm going to flatten this more by smudging, soften the edges a bit, and not rubbing away all the texture. I see I'm getting a little bit low here, so I can smudge it a bit to the top more. Or I could use my liquify tool, but then I sometimes move my textures and that's what I don't like. Well, it's a handmade 70s bowl, so it's okay if it's not perfect. Let's go to the next color. That's a slightly orangey one. It's okay when it overlaps a little bit. It's like ceramic, it burns also, the colors. So just one stroke, no lifting. And I like it when it gets darker here, so it's overlapping the color, it's fine by me. So I'm going to smudge that also. Slightly smudge this a little bit. And that's where I like it. Yes, I'm going to smudge this even softer. And like watercolor, when you want to get rid of your mistakes, you always go and push the color with water down, back down. So that's what I'm doing also here. Slightly pushing the color back again. So, and then the next color, it's a creamy lilac color. So, very soft. And again, I like it if the color mixes and burns some harder lines in there. No lifting my pencil this time either. So, make it darker here, this side. And going to smudge that. Now I'm going to erase the sides with my dry ink brush. So So just smoothen it a little bit. Remember, I don't like perfect, so not too perfect. I want it to look hand-drawn with watercolor. Otherwise, I could have drop and filled it with some other colors, but this is what I like. I think this one, I missed a spot. It's a little bit light, so maybe I can blend it even more. Go back to here. So yes, and then I'm going to catch this slightly yellow one, and I'm going to do this top side of the bowl. And I'm going to smudge that a little bit also. And I'm also going to do the inside of the bowl. Keep in mind that my light is coming from this side, so the inside will be a little bit darker here, and here just it will catch more light. So just fill it in with one layer. And create a little bit darker on this side. So it's more shadow from there. And then I'm going to smudge this a little bit, make it smaller. So I get more light on the top side of this. But I'm also going to create a little bit of soil into the bowl. But I'm going to do that on top of this one. And for that I'm going to check on some brownish color. And let me see what that does. Yes, I think that's okay. And when I lift it once, it gets a little bit darker. So I can smudge that again. Play a little bit with it. And erase what came over the top. And then again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I like it like when it's not perfect. I like it better when it's not perfect. Go to my smudge again. Put a little bit more soil in the corner. Well, I think when I get rid of my sketching layer, I already got a very nice bowl. It's looking very authentic. I'm going to smudge this more to the top because I don't like it here. Where is my layer? This is my layer. Just a little bit like this. Yes, and now I'm going to play again. I'm going to darken this whole bowl. So I'm going to create a layer on top, put it on overlay. And for that I'm going to use my black and my watercolor scribble brush again. And making the size a little bit bigger. So I'm going to darken this size. That's what black on overlay does. It darkens this one. And then I'm going to smudge it again. So it's looking awesome. At least I think it's awesome. And now I'm going to create make this a clipping mask. So when I change the background, it doesn't go over outside of the bowl, the blend pot. And I'm going to create another layer on top of that. I'm going to also clipping mask with a white. I'm going to my splatter brush. No, I'm going to my dry ink brush and I'm going to make some lovely white dots. Try to make them randomly, and I know that's hard, for me at least. It's hard to do that randomly, but that's what I like most because it's hand-drawn, you know. And then I go back to my overlay layer again, choose black, and then I'm going to put in some fine dots, and it's like some lovely splatters in the ceramics of the bowl. And maybe I do this a little bit smaller. I've dropped the opacity, so you can play with that if you want. Maybe a little bit darker, but I don't want it to be so much in your face, just like it's a cute ball right now. So I think that's it for this pot, and now we're going to create the cacti on top of that. And for the first cacti, I'm going to take this color right here, going back to my watercolor scribble brush again, make it small size, like 5 or 4, and let's get back into that same shape again. Well, let's create a nice cactus shape, sort of. Don't lift your pencil. And I'm going to smudge the edges a little bit so it's more soft. And I'm directly going over it again with a darker color on this side because it's getting darker here. And maybe a little bit darker again. So I lifted it up twice. And now I'm going to smudge that. Maybe a little bit bigger. It's a rough watercolor painting. Just to give it that authentic watercolor look. And you can hear me do this all over. So that's how I get my color. And I'm going to drop in, let me see if it works like this or it darkens. I think, yeah, it darkens. I don't like it. I'm going to back to my dry ink brush and just leave a splash of color there. Because you can't go lighter with watercolor. So I'm just blending this color in. Just a little bit to give it a highlight. And I'm going to smudge the edges a little bit softer. So that's the first one, and I'm going to create another one behind it. So go back to my watercolor scribble brush again, and well, let's make a new layer behind it. Sometimes I do them on the same layer, so just work for yourself how it works. Go back to that color again, watercolor scribble brush, yes it is. And then I'm going to create another one here. Don't lift your pencil. Just yet. Now I'm going can lift it and go back over it again to create my shadows, my darker areas. And here also another time again. Again, smudge. I love this so much. This is what I like to do best on the iPad, some watercolor paintings and not painting perfectly. I love it when I do this one. I mostly do this in front of the TV. In my household, there are only men, so they watch football this summer. Soccer, you call it soccer. So I go back to my dry ink brush. Leave a splash of yellow for the highlights and then go smudge it again. And then going to make some softer edges by smudging this a little bit. And I think it looks lovely already. So let's create another cactus, and I'm going to do this on a new layer. And I'm going to this lightish blue, bluish green, gray. And here I'm going to create in my watercolor scribble brush again some form like this. Randomly, I'm going to lift and push down for some extra color accents. Like this, and I'm going to smudge that again. And I think somebody is going to work in his garden, so I hope you don't mind the noise in the background. There's no perfect time for me to draw. I'm going to create another one at the top right now. Go back to this one. I'm going to create a little bit darker here also, and a very small one here, just to make it more lovely. Can you see it already come to life now? Add in some yellow again with a dry ink brush and smudge that in, blend it. You can smudge it, so as long as there's a little bit of highlight there, it will be working fine. And then I'm going to smudge the edges a little bit, so make sure the edges will stay the darkest, especially in the shadow, on the shadow side. So sometimes you have to work your color more into there. And just trust your gut feeling. In watercolor, I think there is no exact wrong or right. Yes, and then on top of this one, I'm going to create all white dots. Go to my whites, go to my dry ink and set them very small. Let me see. It's too big, so 12%. Yes. Again, randomly tap in some dots. This looks awesome, but I'm going to move it a little bit. So this two I'm going to group together so I can move it all in one piece with dots. A little bit to the side like so. And then I'm ready for my next cactus, like on top of that, because it's coming into the front of it. So I'm choosing this middle, yeah, what is it? Olive color? Taupe, we call it also. Go to my watercolor scribble brush again. I think it could be a little bit tilted also. Oh, and I lifted my pencil. Don't lift your pencil. You see, you get an automatically darkening already, and I don't want that. Not just yet. Make a little bit darker down here. It's okay. I'm going to smudge that or just a little bit. And then I'm going to choose the darker color, like this. And I'm going to make those stripes, which you can see in those cacti. And maybe some here also. And I'm going to smudge this, but I'm going to make this, the right side I'm making a harder edge, and the left I'm going to smudge away. So I'm going to my smudge tool. I'm going to create a hard line here. by pushing the color a little bit out. And this I'm going to blend in to that way. So it's softening to that side. And it's what I'm going to do here also. So I'm just making this a harder edge. And this is what I'm going to blend. So you can see like this side is coming up and this one is going down again. And it will make more sense later when we are going to add some highlights again. And this is a little bit too dark, so I'm going to blend in some lighter colors, pushing it back like there's some water coming in. Here I'm going to smudge that also. And then I'm going to clean out the top a bit, maybe with erasing, because it was too much. And every once in a while you have to zoom out. Okay, then I go to this lightest color and I'm going to my dry ink. Make sure you do it on the right side of the flowers. The shadow is on this side, so the highlights will be coming from like here. And maybe a little bit thicker. Too thick. Well, luckily we have the 2-finger undo tab, so I'll zoom in for you a bit. So these have to be on top. And luckily we can see it very clearly now. And zoom out, see if it's correctly done. Now you see they're coming more towards you. So let's go to the smudge brush again and smudge it a bit. So blend it a little bit in. And on top of that, we're going to create some needles. I hope you say needles. We say needles here in the Netherlands. So my dry ink brush again. Am I on a new layer? Yes. I know I have to create a new layer. These are the highlights, you see. So on a layer on top of that, I'm going to create the needles. Dry ink brush again. Make them very small. And just on these tops, randomly, every now and then, create some of these. It's very hot here in the Netherlands. I'm sticking to my to my iPad. Zoom out. I think it looks lovely this way. And then I'm going to get rid of this annoying feel down here, because you can see they're not fading away in the soil. So I'm going to create another layer on top of that. I'm grabbing my lightest brown because my watercolor paper is going to darken again. Go to my watercolor scribble brush and just Oh, it's too big. Just get over this, and by tapping and dapping it will create more darkness. And because I'm on a new layer, I can erase everything I don't like, so don't have to worry about that. Dry ink eraser, yes. And just a little bit randomly, the lightest parts. Maybe smudge it a little. Just to your own liking. Yes, I think that looks fine now. Bring a little bit upwards. Yeah, and I think we could use a little bit more shadow and darkness, and so I'm going to create a new layer on top of that, and I'm going to put it on overlay. Go back to my black color and my watercolor scribble, yes. So on every shadow side I'm going to darken it a bit, but except for this, because I think that's darkened enough. And remember, we can also smudge this, so no need to worry. And you can already see it come more to life. So let's start smudging it. It's not big enough. Yay. Yes, here it comes. So it's getting that wonderful watercolor vibe I want. You see, you can also do that with overlay, and make sure not to smudge all the textures away, because that is what is giving you the authentic look of watercolor. Oh, I'm so confusing about the words sometimes. I'm sorry for that. That's too much gone. Maybe a little bit smaller for this and zoom in a bit more. Yes, I think I like it like this. And maybe we can put some lovely flowers on top, maybe a little bit pinkish. Let me see. Let me just check what I like. New layer, yes. Watercolor scribble. Go over it a little bit. Wow, it instantly makes it more happy. So then I'm happy also about it. Drag in some white. Yes, I like it. And now I think the last thing we want to do is to create some shadow underneath it. So I'm going to create a new layer and just move it all the way to the bottom. And there we're going to create a shadow using the watercolor scribble brush again in black, and just put black all the way underneath the bottom of the pot. And then we're going to smudge it again. And it's all up to you how you like it. Do you want it very dark? Do you want it very watery? Do you want a sharp shadow? It's just how you like it. I like soft shadows, very watery. This is too much. And you can play with it as long as you like to get it to your liking. So this is a project for today, and I hope you have fun playing with watercolor on your iPad.
Thank you for watching. I hope you had fun. Maybe we'll be seeing each other next time. Bye bye!